Welcome everyone to Bobcat Chat. My name's Craig Davis. We have a special guest today. His name is Kyle Ranally, who works at Facebook. And we also have two students in the journalism school, Arianna Guerra and Izzy Keller. So thank you for joining us. The first thing I'd like to do is to start out, is to have Kyle introduce himself and also Arianna and Izzy. So Kyle, why don't you go first and introduce yourself?
Great. Thanks, Craig. Yeah, and excited to be part of this conversation. Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Ranally. I live out in New York. As Craig mentioned, I work for Facebook. Been on their global business marketing team for about 3 years now, and graduated from Ohio University in 2013. And Izzy and Adriana, I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourself now, too.
Yeah, sure. My name is Arianna Guerra. Hi, everyone. I am a journalism major. I am entering my senior year. It's a little unbelievable right now, but I am studying journalism, strategic communication, and I just do a lot of PR and social media work with the campus community.
Hi, everyone. My name is Izzy Keller. I'm entering my junior year at the Scripps J School. I'm a journalism strategic communication major, and I do a lot of writing and PR work throughout different campus organizations.
Great. So Kyle's coming to us from New York. Arianna, are you and Izzy both in Athens, or are you at your hometown?
I am in Athens, actually.
Okay.
I'm in Sandusky, so I'm on the opposite side of the state.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, and my name is Craig Davis. I'm coming to you from Athens. I teach advertising and public relations classes here at Ohio University. I've been here since 2008, and Kyle was one of my students. What year did you graduate? I forget now.
2013.
2013, yes, okay. Kyle was also part of the student ad organization where we competed in the National Student Advertising Competition. So it is great to have him here. I was able to see how he thinks intellectually and how he does research and all that stuff from being his professor. I was also his advisor when he was going to school here. So, and he graduated. I didn't mess up his DART, so that's pretty good. So let's start out with some questions, and we'll start with Kyle with these questions. Number one, did your education at Ohio really give you an edge, or was it more luck that led you to early success? These are questions that other people have posed that we're asking Kyle.
Yeah, happy to answer it. So it's an interesting question. I mean, I think there was a combination of factors that sort of led to kind of how I got into my career, and then ultimately sort of how I've ended up at Facebook as well. But a lot of it, I think, spurred off of the OU kind of connection, education, and then the alumni community as part of it as well. So as you mentioned, Craig, yeah, I started in 2009 at Ohio University, going into journalism, the journalism program. At the time, I really kind of wanted to become a music journalist. So I was big into, like the rock and roll lifestyle of writing for Rolling Stone and covering a lot of bands and writing about like new music and albums and that sort of thing. So I got really more into the traditional sort of aspects of, news writing and editing and magazine journalism. And then probably about a year in, I became more involved in a lot of classes around psychology and around sociology and a lot of more of like the human science behind behavior and what motivates people to do things and that sort of thing. So I kind of then shifted a little bit of focus to go more into like the advertising route. So in my mind, it was a perfect marrying of journalism, having the ability to write and tell compelling stories, but also having that psychological kind of background as well, where you can really understand why people choose to do the thing they do. And it's kind of like a nice kind of semblance and merge between the two kind of disciplines. So went into the advertising route and really kind of got invested into learning about, through the classes that you yourself, Craig, taught between, account planning and account management to really understand, how people think about, the strategic process of developing ad campaigns to managing clients. And also, too, kind of getting more of that real life experience. Like you mentioned, the National Student Advertising Competition, which in my mind was, probably one of the most valuable things that I got when I was in college is that real life tangible experience of having a client come with you with a problem that they're trying to solve, a marketing issue, and then how do you go about that strategic process to develop a campaign, an insight, and ultimately creative and production to really kind of solve that issue, and having that real life kind of experience baked into that college experience. So I think that was hugely important to really kind of understand like the actual real life, habits and behaviors that go about that process. And then also getting exposure to internship opportunities. Like while I was at OU, I had the honor of interning at CNN in New York, which was a really interesting opportunity that I got to go out and work in their research and analytics department. And that was also a way to really understand from a media kind of background how a lot of the world in advertising works from both a TV and a digital and online kind of platform, service kind of services as well. And so I worked really closely to understand who the audiences were for CNN, how we can reach them, more, effectively. And then kind of that TV and digital combination at the time, online advertising and online sort of marketing was, still not new, but had a lot of development to kind of grow from there. So it's really interesting opportunity to get more on that side of things to understand the business. So I think all of that in combination, which I had kind of fostered at OU, was a really helpful starting point to really gain that real life experience to then prepare me for my career. And then I mentioned also to the community aspect. So, obviously being in the J school and, the advertising school, I always thought of us as a lot of, overachievers at the time. So it was nice to kind of connect with like-minded kind of Bobcats and really kind of grow those friendships, at the time in college. And that's actually what got me into New York in the first place. So after college, I worked at a shopper marketing agency in Akron called Geometry Global for a year. I worked in account service. So I worked in the Kimberly-Clark and Dollar Channel kind of retailers, being the middleman between the products that are sold in the stores and then Kimberly-Clark, which makes like Huggies and Kleenex and a lot of consumer packaged goods, like how we can best co-op marketing efforts between the two. And I was, it was a great opportunity. I was happy to start the career out there. I had a great exposure to working with clients. But I really wanted it wasn't really grounded in that, account planning and insight oriented work that I really loved, that I got involved with in college and in CNN. So I was out to lunch with a fellow Bobcat alumni who was also from Cleveland, which is where I'm from originally. And she was mentioning in her ad agency in New York, they were looking for an insights analyst to kind of take on a new role as they were expanding the team to the Reckitt Benckiser account. And it was a new piece of business that the agency just won, and they really needed more resources to help service that account. And as we were talking, I'm like, oh, wow, this sounds like a great opportunity. I would love to sounds like exactly what I was trying to get back into, in that line of work. And so it's through that connection that I actually, I applied to the job. She referred me, and I was able to kind of, interview, get the job. And then 2 weeks later, I told my parents, hey, I'm up and leaving. I'm moving to New York, which caused its own sort of frantic kind of, planning process in a tight timeline. But, it was great. And that was really what kind of catapulted me into, New York. And then it kind of blossomed from there. But those, I think, were the really kind of the foundations of sort of what got me off the ground outside of college. And I think it was a combination of both the academics, the, experience through internships and the National Student Advertising competition, and then also the connections you have with your fellow Bobcats, because those are incredibly strong on their own.
That's great. So a couple of things you mentioned in there, and there's probably some parents watching. So I want to bring this up. Kyle was a Stickle Award winner. And that's how he got the internship at CNN. Very prestigious internship opportunity. Only 20 people in the country get it. And he ended up going to CNN, going to New York. And I remember him in my office talking about, what do I do? Where do I stay? How do I find a place? And all that stuff. And your parents were worried about you. New York is a different place. I went through that same thing when I went to New York. So what you really wanted to do, you started doing it in New York, and then you came back. And then you told him again, I'm going to New York. So tell me how those conversations went.
Yeah, they were interesting to say the least. I think the internship opportunity was easier to figure out because we knew it was like a temporary stay. I was lucky enough to get in early enough where I knew I was going out there where I worked with like the NYU housing situation where I was able to find a dorm room for the summertime. And I also have a second cousin who lives here. So she's lived here for, 20 plus years. So she was kind of able to give me the lay of the land and also kind of familiarize myself with the subway system and navigating New York and the lingo and the pace and everything. So it was a nice sort of mentor as I was getting my feet wet out here. So I think my parents, were very supportive and, obviously were incredibly helpful in the internship kind of and receptive to the idea when I first proposed the internship opportunity. When I decided I wanted to move to New York, full time as, after college and, with, no intended move back date or anything like that, that was a little bit more of a scare. And also, too, just because it was very short notice, things happen so fast in the ad agencies world. Like, you get hired for a job and they want you to start, 2 weeks right afterward as soon as possible. So I remember I sat down, I think at the dinner table after dinner, and I said, I had something to let them know. They knew at the time I was like looking into other job opportunities and things like that. And it spanned from, opportunities in New York, Chicago, a couple potentially in the Cleveland area if I wanted to stay close to home. And then the New York one ended up working out. And so I said, yeah, I have something to tell you. I got this job and I'm moving to New York in like 2 weeks. And obviously they were incredibly excited, but they're incredibly panicked at the same time. But luckily we were able to through just a lot of online searching and even familiarizing myself with some of the neighborhoods when I was an intern here and kind of knowing some of the lay of the land, we're able to book up through kind of some housing and real estate kind of websites, a lot of trips to just kind of view apartments. And so we saw probably in 1 week and we just crammed in seeing maybe 25 apartments just to kind of make our decisions. And then basically just found a place real estate here kind of moves in a crazy pace and then signed for it on the spot with another Bobcat alum who I lived with for a few years when I first got out here as well. So they overall handled it very well, but I can't say there wasn't without a few moments of panic and anxiety.
I know what that's like. But my parents, once I moved there, they're like, wow, we want to come visit. That's so cool. We love New York. So they actually changed they weren't as nervous about it afterwards once I got there. So
exactly. Once you get kind of settled in, now it's their favorite opportunity to come and take a vacation. And I'm pretty sure I don't know many other moms who have done this before, but I'm pretty sure my mom being an Italian and loves to cook has probably looked into meatball policies and bringing food on planes and all this sort of travel arrangements that might go into bringing every type of food you can imagine to New York. So they definitely love it. And it's a great excuse to kind of get them out here and see each other. And it's a short flight too. It's only an hour. So it's not too far.
So just talk, since we are on the topic of New York, talk about the advantages of working there, what that provides. I know there's lots of great cities where students can get jobs in advertising and public relations. Chicago's a big market, San Francisco, New York, definitely. We have lots of alum that go to New York City and work. Just talk a little bit about the opportunity and the advantage of that city.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've been to Chicago and LA and San Francisco. I'd say, all of them are great kind of in their own regard. I'd say none of them really quite match up to the opportunity that I think New York really has to offer. I think, especially if you want to get into advertising and marketing, there's not only from the agency side, virtually, every major agency has their headquarter presence here. And so much kind of invested into the city itself, but also major companies, if you want to work on a brand or a client, have headquarters either in the New York, New Jersey area. So it's just, and also just from a networking and staying connected kind of standpoint, it's a very kind of incestuous industry where there's a lot of folks who, meet each other through the different agencies or the major holding companies where you get to meet, sister agencies through the connections you have here. and a lot of everyone's living in the same proximity. So, a lot's changed with the pandemic, but I think just in general, and it's still sort of sustained over this, last year or so, where just the energy and just the opportunity is sort of unmatched, I think, in a lot of other cities. If you want to be kind of in that, bigger advertising kind of agency or brand side or client side type of environment, there's a lot of that there. But there's also a lot of small shops too, and startups that have really kind of come to emerge with a lot of the technological advancements and, businesses launching, in smaller kind of scales and stuff to kind of start off. So it kind of runs the gamut of like big or small agencies out here. I will say since the pandemic, there has been obviously the push for more remote work. So I actually haven't stepped foot in the Facebook office in about a year, about 14 months now. So okay. I think that's also changing some things, but I think like New York's definitely returning to the place of a lot of people moving back after, the last kind of year and reinvigorating a lot of that energy into the workforce and into kind of the culture of the city too. But the nice thing about the remote side too is you are able to have more opportunities where if you do want to work for, your big agencies like your Ogilvy's or JWTs, they're offering kind of, and even Facebook is doing this too, is a big push for, democratizing that opportunity. So it's not centered into the major markets, but you can have an opportunity to work for these types of companies, regardless of where you are, through just like, more connectivity and more technological advancements to provide those opportunities.
Great. So we have a question that's coming from Tom, and I'm not sure we can answer this right now. Matter of fact, I could probably answer because I have a study that looks at all this. But the question is, what is the expected salary entry level for strategic communication majors? And is there a master's program for strategic communication? So I don't know if that's something that Kyle can answer, but I could probably answer that. But I have to look at my salary guide for 2021. There are tons of graduate programs for students in advertising and communications and branding. Ohio University does not have a brand-specific or strategic communication graduate program, although we're working on putting one together right now. So I hope that helps. Here's a question for Kyle from the billions on the internet right now. Based off your real-world experience, what are some best options for communication majors if they also want to pick a minor while in college? That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, and I don't know if this is still part of the curriculum, but I remember a corollary was sort of a requirement as part of the program, which was essentially kind of a minor, but it wasn't like an official minor. And mine, I remember, was psychology, which I actually did end up turning it into an official one. I think that's a really good one. Anything I'd say, and again, it can kind of vary depending on the sector of advertising you're most interested in. So for example, for someone like myself who's interested in account planning, insight, strategy, I'd say a lot of kind of the focus areas that are more grounded into the, like more of the economic side of things, psychology, sociology, anthropology are all great options to look into. It gives you really that more behavioral and human aspect of like what makes people kind of tick and like how they kind of respond to different marketing messages and that sort of thing. Anything in the business kind of program could be interesting to look into too. If you're interested in more of the creative side, I'd say, obviously the design route or, any more in the creative writing space or English space could be really interesting. So it's really, I think, identifying what is most of interest of you and like the type of route you want to go within advertising. It is such a broad kind of umbrella, it can cover everything from more of the data science side to the creative storytelling, design work. That could be kind of run a full gamut. So for myself personally, I'd say the psychology, economics, and sociology route is the one that I thought was really interesting to go down.
Yeah, and that's the perfect one for what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is. Yeah. So Arianna and Izzy, why don't you field this question as well? Are you working on any minors, certificates in the journalism school? And we'll start with Arianna. We'll give Kyle a rest there.
Yes, so I actually am minoring in African American studies right now. That's just because I know with OU, with their journalism majors, one thing that I really like is that they want you to be really well-rounded professionals. So all of your general education courses, you're taking those in multiple different areas. So that's how you find kind of what you like. And then I feel like that's how you find your niche. I like history, so that's why I fell in love with African American studies. But I also know a lot of my classmates really like media, whether that's digital storytelling or VR work, that goes into their niche as well. Sports management, if you want to be a sports advertiser, sports writer, a different language. I know a few of my classmates have talked about moving to Spain or Japan, places like that to advertise. Or even public health. So I think really just anything. And usually people pick that up in my experience, like the first year or two when they're taking those gen ed courses, because they're like, oh, this is kind of cool. I actually like am looking forward to going to this class today. And it kind of has nothing to do seemingly with journalism on the surface. And then they do a deeper dive. And then I think no matter what it is, you can always craft it to make it relevant and usable in the industry that you like, whatever you want to do with it.
How about you, Izzy?
So while I'm going into my junior year of, college, I am actually coming out of my freshman year. So last year was my first year of college. I had my associate's degree when I graduated high school. So I don't have a decided minor yet, but I am interested in a whole bunch of different minors. I like poli-sci. I've always found politics pretty interesting. I've always taken more of an interest in PR. So working for a politician as a spokesperson would be, I think it would be a pretty cool job. And I also think economics and marketing is pretty interesting. I like kind of seeing how other people think and how audiences buy product and such. I'm also interested in getting a social media certificate. I think that social media is going to have it has a big role in strategic communications, and it's going to continue to have even a bigger role. So I think it's really important for my future career to have a better understanding of, social media and stuff.
Yeah, that's one good thing. Our university does offer lots of different certificates and minors that you can take advantage of, and the School of Journalism has you have to choose a specialization in our school, and this gives you an opportunity to study these things. I would say as an advisee, as an advisor, probably 75% of my advisees will get the marketing certificate because advertising, PR, and marketing are so related. So good. So while we're on Arianna and Izzy, there was a question here, and I think you're the best to answer that. Are all courses for a major in the Scripps College in one building, or is it spread out? And what are the facilities like?
All of the courses can be very spread out. That's especially for your freshman year. Now that I've completed my junior year, and then obviously I completed my junior year during quarantine, so online courses were a big thing. But next year I am switching back to quite a few in-person classes, and most of those do happen in the same facility in the Schoonover Center, just because that's where the specific things that I would like to do are and the capstone. But definitely working your way up to that, you're going to just have a plethora of courses. And that goes into what I was saying earlier with the minors, like you have to take psychology, statistics, you have to take a science course. So all of those things, you're going to be with people from even other colleges. So I know I was in statistics with a lot of people who were not journalism majors. So I think that really is a cool networking opportunity as well, because you get to talk to a lot of different people in those general education courses. But I think, as we all know, OU is a very hilly campus. So sorry to disappoint if you were hoping that all of the courses are in one same area. They are not going to be, most likely, at least your freshman and sophomore year. Junior year, senior year, it tends to change a little bit. But yeah, I'm definitely not looking forward to going back up Jeff Hill and Morton Hill coming up this school year.
Okay, got another question. So this is we're still in the same theme of, the university. And this is for Kyle. How can students leverage the Bobcat Network to advance in marketing and advertising? I think you touched on this already, but any other points or thoughts on that might help students with their networking?
Yeah. I mean, I think I spoke about it a little bit. I guess I can talk from two different lenses. One while you're in school, and then I guess one after the fact. So yeah, I'd say while you're in school, I mean, the thing that like I said, is most valuable is joining those types of clubs or extracurricular kind of opportunities that you have access to, like National Student Advertising Competition, the Ad Club. There was a few other kind of other organizations that allowed you to get together outside of class and just, meet with fellow students, develop relationships, and stay connected throughout the college experience. And a lot of them did bring in students from various backgrounds and majors and that sort of thing. So it's good to have that diverse kind of pool of people to stay in touch with. And then I'd say after graduating, I mean, keep in close contact with, those folks as well. Like join, if you're moving into any of the metropolitan areas, there's, always an OU alumni association. So in New York, there's a big one that has a lot of different networking events and a lot of activities that they'll host throughout the year to bring Bobcats ranging from, 22 years old to 70 years old at these different, moments to kind of get to know one another and across a lot of different industries and a lot of different professions. So I'd stay involved in that sense, and then obviously leverage social media to your advantage, whether it be Facebook groups, so participate and stay in touch via those platforms. LinkedIn also is a great network to stay connected and up to date on the university and any sort of news related to that. And yeah, just, if you're looking into kind of job opportunities or prospects, don't hesitate to reach out to someone who's an alumni. So that's a great way to start a conversation and have an instant bond with someone is looking into, their background or on their LinkedIn and discovering this, Bobcat works at CNN or Facebook or whatever company you might be interested in. Because they're always, willing to have a conversation at least and at least give you some insight into what the company's like or the position, and can help kind of guide you along your way if you're interested in those types of opportunities.
That's great. So let's move on to your job now. You're working at Facebook. What's the favorite thing about working at Facebook? What is it like? What's your average day? I know you've spoken in my class, and this was before the pandemic, and you spoke and you were traveling to Singapore. You were just traveling all over back then, and now that's changed. So tell us a little bit about your everyday life working at Facebook.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, happy to give some insight there. Yeah, so I guess before getting to the specifics of Facebook, talk a little bit about how I kind of ended up at Facebook. So I spoke a little bit. My first job was at a shopper agency. When I moved to New York, I got into the media planning and buying agency world, which is all about, deciding how to spend media dollars for advertising across TV and online and print and all these kind of networks or possible media channels. And so my job within that was really, it's called consumer insights, which is sort of a more specialized function within the agency world. It's account planning oriented, comms planning oriented, but really how do we validate and understand consumer behavior based on research and data, and how do we extract meaningful insight out of that information to guide clients to make informed and actionable choices that would really help guide their strategies and where they decide to kind of place their media, or if you're in the creative side, like creative insights into like what type of creator resonates well. So I worked in the media side doing insights into consumer behavior for an agency called Visium for a little while. And I worked specifically with clients to help them. They'd come up with a question or a brief and ask us, for example, one of my clients at the time was Reckitt Benckiser, which makes like Lysol and Mucinex and a lot of CPG brands. And they would ask us, consumer behavior trends around, how is millennial generations shopping for our products, or what are some of the emerging trends you're seeing in the ways that people are consuming online video. And we would do research and like pull insight from a lot of different sources that we had access to conduct and basically come up with a strategic kind of story and proposition for them to kind of use and implement into their strategies. And so I did that at Visium. And then I did another agency called Mindshare, which is a slightly bigger kind of agency doing the same type of work in the same discipline. So pretty much my whole background prior to Facebook was all around this idea of how can we really better understand consumers, culture, media, and how it all sort of ties together into how brands and businesses can better connect with consumers organically and make better, more personal connections there. And at the time, Facebook, I was just sort of, keeping an eye out just to see what opportunities might, be out there in the industry. And I always had an interest in, more of the tech world's kind of side, or even the client side or brand side. So I was looking into other opportunities outside agencies. And they actually had a really interesting opportunity because they were building out a new insight practice, which was being led globally, where they really wanted to have this type of function be centered to the global business marketing organization's kind of way of operating. So really kind of how can we understand and do research to better understand how consumers are shopping across different categories, across different industries, and across different geographies to better kind of build out that sort of understanding and guide clients at Facebook to how they can optimize kind of their way of thinking and their strategies as they think about digital kind of media and marketing in that sense. So I started in May of 2018 with the goal being like, how can we build out and make insights more of a central function to inform, our pitches to clients, to inform kind of their strategies and that sort of thing. So when I first got started, it was really kind of like setting the foundation of understanding, what type of research can we do? How can we, leverage the data that we have access to like understand kind of these shifts in behaviors and building that. And we use actually a platform that we have called Facebook IQ, which is similar to, it's basically an external website that publishes content and insights and reports that shows these kind of learnings from our research. So it'll be everything from like how people are using their phone to, navigate shopping in store and online to, what are some of the, big gaps in terms of like diversity and representation in advertising and what should marketers be doing about this on, digital platforms. So we look into a kind of a wide range of topics and do research to uncover these big sort of topics and trends and then publish it externally. And then, we kind of take different modes to get the information out there. So some of it's writing up articles. So very similar to kind of like a journalism kind of background there of how can we write up an interesting and compelling article for someone to read and how to, take an opportunity and translate into an action, or speaking engagements where, recently I spoke at a conference called Ad World, which brought together like 50,000 ad professionals across the world and kind of, educate them and inspire them to kind of take advantage of some of the consumer trends that we're seeing and like actually giving them tangible guidance of how to put that into their business practices. So that's what I've been up to for the last 3 years. It's been a really interesting kind of opportunity. It's my first real global role. So we work with folks, across everywhere in the world, from Singapore to London to Sao Paulo, all throughout the States, and get to connect with people from very kind of different backgrounds, a lot of different challenges that you kind of hear. And so you're really trying to find ways to sort of address a lot of those, opportunities and questions as they come up. And it's really exciting because, obviously, we're really, I've never been a part of a company that's really had such a major kind of impact on the world at large, so much, especially if you think of like the opportunities it's granted to small businesses and entrepreneurs and creators. There's a lot of kind of, opportunity and a lot of kind of progress has been made in the company itself. So it's a really kind of inspiring kind of place to, to work and to do work every day in. And it's a really exciting kind of field because insight and data storytelling is, what I'm very passionate about. and there's loads of room to kind of build that out at the company and take it to the next level. So those are my favorite aspects. Probably a more long-winded way of answering your question, but the things that I love most of working at Facebook. And last thing you'll say is the nice thing about Facebook is, it's not just Facebook, the app, but we also cover Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger. So there's a lot of other kind of sub brands and companies within there that we're able to work on, which makes it really exciting as well.
That's great. So one of the subtle things that some students, potential students, think about, like in your role, oftentimes they think, oh my gosh, I got to have a master's or a PhD, and I got to know how to do all these statistics. You certainly know how to do all that. But what do you think your core skill set is that allows you to develop insights and share these with clients? What's the most important skill set to have for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for my line of work, to be honest, I call it data storytelling, but I think like more so just being able to have a certain level of comfort. It's almost like you're piecing together a puzzle a lot of the time, because you have like so much interest, an immense amount of information out there. A lot of research has been conducted across so many different companies that span from the consultancies of the world, the research vendors. You're doing your own research to really kind of get your perspective and answer some of the questions you have. But I think what it all comes down to, and I think why it has such a nice tie to journalism, is because the main thing you're trying to do is tell a story grounded in research that helps a business better achieve an outcome. And so I think the most important part of that is the storytelling. So I think of the data side, having a hypothesis when you go into it, answering a research question or answering a problem that a client might bring you is really important. And you can look around and field research to kind of, help kind of get answers to that. But then how you actually convey and present that information is almost more important, because I think people really respond to how a story is told. Obviously it's human nature to really kind of have those, to really hear good and compelling stories and grab attention in that sort of way. So we're constantly looking at ways of how can we, make our storytelling more provocative, more compelling, more, attention grabbing, to make sure that we are really kind of making an impact and conveying the right information to the right people. And that's the last thing, your clients want to do is just be in a meeting where they're hearing either the same information they've heard over and over again, or something that's not surprising or engaging for them, but something that's really going to make them take a step back and really have that sort of surprise aha moment, which we're all looking to sort of achieve in this type of discipline within advertising. So I think really honing in on a storytelling kind of component is super important, but also having the comfort to not be too overwhelmed when you look at statistics and research and data in sort of large quantities.
Great. So also related to Facebook and your day-to-day work, I know you've done a lot of trends research of what's going to be happening in the future. And that's where I learned that this was maybe 4 years ago, that consumers were watching more horror movies than they were ever watching before. That was part of your research. I mean, that's like, wow, how did this come about? And you had an explanation. I forget what it was. But what do you see as the trends in the next 5-10 years? What do you think will be big things that are going to be changing that we should be watching for?
Yeah, I think, a couple of things come to mind. I mean, there's obviously been so much change in the last year, just as a result of the pandemic. So I know a lot of, in the industry, you'll hear it a lot of times is, we've had 10 years of change in like 10 weeks. So you think about the acceleration of e-commerce, and especially in categories where there weren't a lot of that to begin with. So like grocery shopping, the amount of people who've ordered groceries online or purchased them online and went to go pick them up into a store. So I think a lot of that sort of online shopping behavior is going to be here to stay, as people kind of blend like this hybrid reality of like maximizing the benefits you're used to in an online shopping environment. So everything from convenience to, having that easy comparability and sort of easy way to discover new products, to actually being like more tangibly able to like touch and feel products in store. Like that whole omni-channel is like kind of a bit of a buzzword of way of describing it. Way of shopping is definitely, I think, going to continue. And I think, Facebook in particular sits, I think, in a very core central part of that, because there is a lot of more commerce and buying and shopping opportunities on Facebook. I think the example we always kind of talk about is like how many people in the pandemic over the last year has like bought something that you had no idea you even needed or wanted off because you saw it on Instagram or something like that. So there's a lot more of this serendipitous shopping behavior that's kind of coming up on Instagram, on Facebook, that I think is going to be really, really impactful and playing a big role moving forward. I think also too, influencers and creators and content in general is going to be like a huge area that's going to get built out and accelerate even, further as they expand into more ways of like adding value and adding a lot of, information into people's lives. So you think about, the platforms and where you get ideas and inspiration on recipes or on, fashion ideas and that sort of thing. A lot of it's coming from these people who are like more relatable, have more authentic kind of connections with their viewers and stuff to kind of give you ideas. And like, especially if you think about it, so much time you're spending in the home of like even decorating. Like I know like my fiance, she always like turns to Instagram when she's looking at ways of decorating the house or like new kind of like little pieces of decor to kind of add like, a nice creative flair and stuff like that. So I think like the more like democratized influence as people kind of seek out more like communities of similar people or like those influencer type creator types for ideas and inspiration is going to continue to accelerate in the years to come. And I think too, it's going to be interesting. A hot topic at the moment now is, we think about the future of advertising, and especially in the online space. Obviously digital is kind of like the way everything's sort of shifting. Historically, TV was like a main like mode and channel to communicate and convey your commercials, your brand messaging, that sort of thing. And obviously it's very time consuming and expensive. There's been this very big shift in focus. How can you really create and optimize content on digital platforms to really kind of have more of that agile, quick kind of like turnaround in terms of producing new marketing and messaging that's more like endemic to like what you're viewing and more relevant to kind of like your personalized feed and sort of connections and interests and that sort of thing. So I think we're shifting more and more into the pendulum of like people thinking digital first and like building for more of that quick content, very relevant sort of content that would then be kind of like the way for people to communicate their marketing messages to like a wide scale audience, and even opening opportunities for global expansion too. So you need reach if you're a business and you want to explore opportunities in Mexico or Thailand. You have the opportunity to reach those types of people on social platforms and through digital and that sort of thing. So I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for even businesses looking to go abroad as well. So I think those are some of the main kind of like trends and things that are definitely going to continue in the future. And I think especially as students and people looking to get into the ad agency industry should look out to. And I always say, always stay up to date and read as much as possible, because there's always like so much change and so much kind of evolution within the industry at this time that it really helps, as you go about, the interview process or seeking jobs, to know kind of like what's happening. So you're staying on the pulse of, the industry and culture at large.
So how many people work in the Insight group at Facebook?
Yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting question. And there's a lot of, I feel like folks that sort of touch insights in varying capacity. I guess with the closest thing to, the similar folks who work on like my type of work, I would say there's roughly 25-ish to 30 globally. So there's folks kind of who sit within the various continents and regions to, be there, more the local points of contact for insights and research. And then myself, as I said, I'm more of a global kind of insights point of contact. So I sort of operate at a more macro, higher level to kind of help address the scaled kind of needs across the regions. But those are kind of like the main insights kind of function folks. There's also a lot of teams that are like insight adjacent. So there's some people who work more on like comms planning, which like builds insights, but they get a little bit more into like developing more of a concrete tactical like media strategy for clients. And then there's also folks who are more on the research and data science side, who are more in the weeds of like, identifying new methodologies and ways of conducting research, which my team doesn't really get too hands-on in that. It's more of like taking the information and the research and building into something more compelling that we can put out into the industry. So yeah, I'd say 25, but then I think the organization as a whole is trying to expand the insight conversancy to multiple teams and really make that like a core focus of everyone who sits at the company.
Okay. So regarding research, do you have teams that are doing in-depth interviews and focus groups and then also quantitative studies as well? You have everything working together?
Yeah, yeah.
When you do a research project, are you engaging all of them together, or do you just choose, here's what I want to do, here's the focus?
Yeah, typically we come together kind of as an organization, like across key teams, identify the key gaps and like areas of opportunity that we need support from a research standpoint. And usually that could be, we usually do it by industry. So like in retail, we might have, based on our clients who are in the retail sector, like the Walmarts and Targets of the world, what are like the big kind of topics that we need to kind of understand to better kind of communicate to our clients within a specific industry. And then from there, our research counterparts, we work with them to identify those opportunities. It's different kind of the agency world, because I feel like when I was in the agency world, you wore many hats. So you'd be the researcher, the insights person, the client service person, the comms planner, and like all of this all wrapped into one. But now I think it's a little bit more fragmented, where there are specific disciplines that kind of specialize into each area that touches a research project. So the researchers who also operate globally conduct studies based on the topics that the broader organization identify as like the key needs. And then they'll develop the methodology, whether it's survey-based, whether they need to do qualitative, in-depth interviews, focus groups, any sort of, way that they can capture and address like the key question that's being answered. And we'll stay, involved in that process, give feedback, on questionnaires and like on certain components where they need feedback. And then really we sort of come together to identify, once we have all the information and all the puzzle pieces are kind of scattered out on the table, what's the most meaningful way that we can or meaningful insights we can extract from this information. And then we sort of take that and craft it into a piece that we can then either publish externally on Facebook IQ, develop for sales and marketing teams internally to use in their pitches and presentations to clients, or in their digital campaigns if they're on the marketing side, and then kind of get the messages out there on those fronts. So that's kind of how the process of how it works and how we sort of work together to identify those needs.
Awesome. So question, the Facebook IQ, a lot of the research you do is proprietary for your clients, but is that the space where students could go, also professors could go, to see the latest research that's actually publishable, and it's open to everybody?
Yeah, it's completely open to everyone. It's free, so there's no like costs or like subscription you need to access it. It's a part of a bigger website called Facebook for Business, which is also publishes a lot of content around best practices, creative kind of guides and stuff like that. How you can place ads on Facebook and Instagram. So there's a lot of tactical guidance there too. But our like pocket of the website is called Facebook IQ, and it's more about publishing that content and that those articles and reports based on the research we're doing. So yeah, I encourage, if anyone wants to check it out, it's got a lot of really great information on there and has a lot of kind of give a little bit more background, I guess, on the type of work that me and my team do.
Cool. So we have 10 minutes left, and now's your chance, Kyle, to ask our students any questions, or your old washed up professor any questions.
Oh man. All right. Yeah, I guess for Izzy and Arianna, what's been your favorite class you've taken so far as a part? It could be as a part of the advertising curriculum or outside of it as well, in the different minors that you guys have been looking into or specializations. It would be good to know just kind of that, if you guys have an answer.
I have to go back through my mind and think of all of the classes that I've taken, because it seems like one long year that I've been here and not like 3 different years. But I think the outside courses that I've taken, just to lump them all together, those are really informational. I took a marketing course, and then of course, like my African American studies and languages. It's made me more culturally aware, and it's made me more aware of, as you were saying, the different segments that a brand might be targeting. I think sometimes when you see like on the news these big slip ups that some brands might make, and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that. You can definitely tell who's in the room, who's doing the advertising, because it's just a lack of cultural awareness. It's a lack of understanding of who they're trying to talk to, and maybe just like not even keeping up on the trends. So that was really insightful. I think every single class that I took outside of the journalism school was very insightful. And then I also took Craig's Davis's class last semester. Well, I guess it was last year in the summer, and that was really insightful. We looked at a lot of different examples of what the PR industry is right now. It has been in the past. So I think just kind of overall, like the long roundabout answer is overall, I think everything all together really like gave me a lot of insight into what it means to be a PR professional and just a journalism professional. I mean, as you've said multiple times, things changed like that, especially with social media and just how fast paced the world is right now. I think you really have to think very quick on your feet and have a good understanding of the world around you in order to do good.
Excuse me, for me, outside of the journalism school, I took a business law class my first semester of college, and it was really, really hard, but I felt like I learned a whole lot of different, a whole bunch of stuff that I never really thought of before. So that was really interesting. Last semester, I took Principles of Marketing, which is the intro marketing class, and I felt like that one was super, super interesting. I really liked the professor for that one. I'm sorry, but I forgot his name. But I really enjoyed listening to him speak. He had a lot of experience in his field, and you know, it was just an overall really interesting class. I also took History of American Radicalism last semester, which was like my history class that I needed to graduate, and it was super, super cool. You learn about things that you really wouldn't really learn about any other way. And you get to hear, you know, my professor was Kevin Matson, and he's a super smart guy. He knows what he's talking about. And it's definitely, you know, great class. Inside the journalism school, I took media literacy, which is really important for, you know, anybody, whether you're in Stratcom or News and Information in the journalism school. And I also took Surin Chung's Intro to Advertising and PR class, and that's a really good like introduction into, you know, what advertising is, what PR is, and you know how the different industries work, and you know, what's the difference between the two of them. And it's, you know, it's a really interesting class, and Dr. Chung's a really good professor too.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds great. It sounds like some really interesting classes too that I don't even know were available when I was there, but History of American Radicalism sounds really interesting, and media literacy, super important too. So I guess, yeah, it might be one other question that comes to mind. It might be for you, Craig, is obviously, you know, the curriculum has sort of, you know, evolved in the years I've been there. What are some of the, like, you know, the classes or new opportunities or courses in the last few years that have popped up that have gotten you really excited, or that you think are really cool opportunities for students?
Well, I'm really excited because we're working on a graduate professional certificate in the Scripps College, and there'll be a number of classes. These are for people that have already graduated, they're working in the industry, and to hone their skills. And if all goes well, Kyle will be teaching one of those classes. We'll be teaching, we've set up some courses. They still have to go through the curriculum committee, but we have a strategic communication management stackable certificate where you take Intro to Strategic Communication, Strategic Communication Management, and Media. Then we also have one that's more about brand communication and insights, which is a planning class, which is what we've been talking about for quite a while. So that's coming up. There's also a stackable certificate idea for a media class where they would take Intro to Media, they would get certified in Facebook media, and the last class they put together a fully integrated media plan that includes digital and traditional. So that's what I'm excited about. We're working on those new things. So
super exciting.
Yeah. So I want to thank you, Kyle, for your time. I know you're busy. I really appreciate you having this conversation. I'd like to thank Arianna and Izzy for being here for this. And I think we're pretty much at the end. So thank you all again, and we'll hang out here.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me.